The old man before us was once a top-tier assassin. Yet now, he can't even recall what happened a second ago. Illness is slowly consuming the man once known as the God of Death. He's long been ready to put down his weapons and leave the killing behind, but an unexpected incident suddenly exposes a dark transnational crime conspiracy. To find out how the story unfolds, stay tuned with Movie Recaps Official as we go through today's film. Alex used to be a high-level hitman, renowned for his precision and undefeated record. But as the years passed, his memory began to fade. Diagnosed with Alzheimer's, he could only write key details on his arm to remind himself of his missions. That day, he disguised himself as a healthcare worker at a hospital, preparing for his next assassination. Coincidentally, his target had just arrived to visit his sick mother. Alex followed behind, unnoticed. The target assumed he was just another nurse. But within seconds, Alex had completed the hit flawlessly. He quickly sealed the weapon and left the patient room. Back in his car, he typed a message to report the mission's completion. Moments later, he realized he couldn't remember where he had placed his car keys. Frustration surged, and curses slipped out of his mouth instinctively. Elsewhere in Texas, a desperate father was preparing to use his own daughter for an illegal deal. But he had no idea that the buyer, Vincent, was actually an undercover FBI agent. After they agreed on the price, the father stood up and left, giving Vincent time alone with the girl. However, before Vincent could get any information, the girl spotted the hidden camera in his shirt. She panicked and ran out, shouting for her father. Before she could finish her cry, a group of uniformed FBI officers burst in. Seeing this, the father's face changed instantly. He pointed his gun straight at his daughter's temple. Seeing the girl taken hostage, Vincent didn't dare act rashly. He tried to calm the man down and persuade him to drop the gun. The girl suddenly bit her father's arm hard, and Vincent seized the moment. He lunged forward, sending both of them crashing through the second-floor window. The girl was successfully rescued, but the man died instantly from the fall. Moments later, local Mexican police arrived to handle the scene, along with FBI supervisor Mika. Furious, Mika confronted Vincent for ruining a long-term operation. It turned out the US and Mexico had been cooperating for over a year to track down the criminal network behind that man. Both sides had invested enormous resources, and they were close to a breakthrough. But now, because of Vincent's mistake, the only lead had been lost. Meanwhile, the rescued girl, Beatrice, was taken away by the local police. Yet when she looked at Vincent, the man who saved her, there wasn't even a trace of gratitude in her eyes. A month later, Alex drove to Mexico City to meet his old friend Davide. Davide was not only well-connected locally, but had also been Alex's mission broker for years. After catching up for a bit, Davide handed him the envelope for his next job. This time, the envelope was twice as thick as usual, a clear sign the risk was much higher. Alex glanced at it but didn't take it. In a tired voice, he told Davide that he was getting old and planned to retire. Seeing Alex's weary expression, Davide realized he wasn't joking, but still asked him to take this one last job, as a favor between old friends. Out of respect for their long friendship, Alex reluctantly accepted. He then said goodbye and drove back to a small town in Texas. At the hotel he had booked, he immediately took his medication and wrote key details on his arm again. Afterward, he went down to the lobby to meet the contact. The contact handed him a heavy leather briefcase. Inside were detailed files about the target, along with weapons and tools for the mission. Meanwhile, Vincent visited Beatrice, hoping to gather more clues. But she refused to cooperate. She even despised Vincent for bringing her there. Her father once told her, "Even if your body is exploded, it's still better than being locked away and losing your freedom." It was clear she had been brainwashed. Hearing that, Vincent sighed and gently told her he would soon arrange to move her to a safe facility. He advised her to reach out to him only after she was ready to trust again. Alex's first target this time was a man named Ellis. That night, Alex waited silently outside Ellis's mansion, watching for the right moment. Soon, Ellis opened the door to leave, and found himself staring down the barrel of Alex's gun. Alex pushed him inside, pressing the muzzle against his temple. Panicking, Ellis trembled and stammered that what Alex wanted was inside the upstairs safe. As he unlocked it, he knew that even handing it over wouldn't save his life. He suddenly grabbed something from the bookshelf, trying to fight back, but Alex dodged easily and locked his arm around his neck. Just then, Ellis's daughter returned home. She called out to her father, saying she'd stay at a friend's house that night. Alex stayed silent, tightening his grip until Ellis went limp. With the mission cleanly executed, Alex retrieved a USB drive from the safe and hurried back to his car. When he opened the next target file, he froze. The face in the photo was none other than Beatrice, the girl Vincent had saved. At this point, Alex naturally did not know the girl. The next day, Vincent and his colleague Linda immediately drove non-stop to the scene of the crime. Upon arrival, lawyer Gerald introduced the two to Marianne, the victim's wife, and reassured her that the police would do their utmost to uncover the truth. Since the safe in the house showed clear signs of being forced open, Mika suspected it was a burglary murder. But Vincent sensed that the case would not be that simple. With years of experience in solving cases, both agreed that the method used was very professional, completely unlike that of a normal robber. Therefore, the two seriously asked Marianne if the victim had any enemies at work. However, Marianne hesitated and choked up as she replied that she and her husband had been arguing frequently lately over trivial matters. The relationship had already reached a freezing point. As a result, she knew nothing about her husband's affairs. The atmosphere immediately turned icy. Vincent and the others were also temporarily clueless. Unexpectedly, upon returning to the police station, Mexican police officer Hugo announced the termination of cooperation. It turned out that Vincent's mistake had caused the transnational case that the two countries were cooperating on to stall, so the Mexican side decided to withdraw without wasting any more time. Thus, the task force had no choice but to announce its dissolution. However, regarding Beatrice's next place of residence, Vincent had a disagreement with everyone else. Gerald wanted to continue detaining the girl. After all, she was currently the only one of value. But Vincent disagreed. He believed Beatrice had suffered severe psychological trauma and that the current situation was no longer suitable for detention. He then did as he had promised, taking Beatrice out of detention and finding her a new, suitable home. The foster parents also promised to arrange psychological counseling and a new school for her soon. Seeing the clean and bright room, Beatrice's guard gradually lowered. She even took the initiative to give Vincent a painting she had drawn. Looking at the childish strokes on the painting, Vincent's heart was moved. He promised to visit her often in the future. Little did they know that all their actions had been seen by Alex, who had been watching them from the beginning. They did not realize the danger that was quietly approaching. That night, Alex took advantage of the darkness to sneak into Beatrice's room. The bright flashlight woke the girl up. Seeing the unfamiliar older man before her, the girl immediately trembled with fear. Her voice choked as she begged him to spare her. Seeing Beatrice's terrified expression, Alex's hand holding the gun hesitated. In the end, he couldn't bring himself to pull the trigger. Although he made his living as a killer, he had his own principles. So the next day, Alex contacted the broker Borden, arranging to meet him in the park and giving him a severe beating. He declared he would not harm a girl. Then Alex used the USB drive he had obtained to threaten Borden into canceling this contract. If not, he would pay the price. Seeing the cruelty in Alex's eyes, Randy, his face bruised and swollen, dared not resist further. Not long after, Borden contacted the person who had commissioned this task, Davana, the chairwoman of the largest financial corporation in the area, who was also a woman as vicious as a snake. The USB drive Alex had taken contained all the evidence of Randy's crimes, Randy being Davana's son. To prevent these scandals from being exposed and affecting the corporation, she bluntly bribed and sought to eliminate everyone who knew about it. When Davana learned that Alex wanted to cancel the contract, she didn't feel particularly upset. She simply told Borden not to get involved anymore and that she would handle it herself. At that moment, Alex, physically and mentally exhausted, was relaxing in the bar. However, no sooner had he sat down than the woman at the next table was being harassed by a thug. Alex stepped forward to intervene, but the thug completely ignored him and even aggressively provoked him. Seeing that the other party was unwilling to back down, Alex said nothing more, just raised his hand and punched the thug straight in the face, causing him to flee in fear. The harassed woman gratefully approached to thank him, but Alex only took a sip of his drink, his face expressionless. The next day, before dawn, Alex was awakened by a nightmare. In his dream, he had actually shot and killed Beatrice. Fortunately, his girlfriend was there to comfort him, and he gradually calmed down. Unbeknownst to him, Vincent had received a call reporting the crime, but by the time he rushed to the scene, what he saw was Beatrice's body. At the same time, Alex, who was saying goodbye to his girlfriend, saw the news about the girl's murder on TV. He immediately turned pale, thinking that his memory was faulty. But his girlfriend repeatedly insisted that they had been together all night. Alex hadn't left the hotel. So who had killed Beatrice? Realizing something was amiss, Alex immediately led his girlfriend away from there. He warned her not to mention him to anyone and quickly went to the parking lot to prepare to escape. However, thanks to his years of experience as an assassin, Alex noticed something was wrong at a glance. All the camera wires had been cut. Clearly, someone was trying to hide something. So Alex quickly ran to his own car. He discovered a time bomb under the car. But before he could move, Mauricio, who was lying in wait nearby, suddenly launched an attack. Alex hurriedly hid behind the car, when suddenly his girlfriend unexpectedly ran into the parking lot to remind him that he had forgotten his medicine. Seeing this, Alex rushed over, but Mauricio's bullet was one step faster. Seeing his innocent girlfriend die because of him, Alex was in extreme pain. After that, he threw Mauricio, who was bleeding from the head, into the car with the time bomb. Alex also placed his girlfriend in the backseat. Not long after, Vincent and his teammates arrived at the scene of the car explosion. Mika immediately explained the basic situation to him and showed him photos of the scene taken by the police. The pile of white pills scattered on the ground immediately caught his attention. Mika explained that it was a prescription drug and the police were searching for its source. Hearing this, Vincent returned the phone to the other party, then said he would go to the storage facility to look up information about the owner of the exploded car. However, after work that day, Agent Hugo unexpectedly came to Vincent. He said that currently, apart from the two of them, no one else was interested in Beatrice's murder case. He also mentioned that he couldn't return to the Mexican police station for the time being. Why not continue the investigation as a private citizen? Perhaps he could find clues that the police had missed. Vincent naturally wouldn't refuse. After all, he also wanted to find the person behind it all to bring justice to the victim. In another development, Borden, who had been threatened by Alex, was now jogging in the gym. He was completely unaware that a shadow was approaching him outside the window. After completing the assassination, Alex quickly avoided the crowd and hid in a house. He then plugged the USB drive he had obtained into the computer and listened carefully to its contents. At the same time, he kept writing down important information on his arm. But what he found hard to believe was that he had seen the dark industry behind it all. And the mastermind was Randy, Devana's son. Seeing the abused people, Alex felt extreme rage rising in his heart. At the same time, Vincent, Linda, and Hugo had also arrived at the gym. Mika saw this and stepped forward to greet them, informing them that the bullet casings and wounds left at the scene perfectly matched the previous car explosion. Clearly, this recent assassination was very likely carried out by the same person. At that moment, Lawyer Gerald hurriedly entered the scene. As soon as he arrived, he questioned Vincent immediately. "Why are you here? Aren't you investigating the mansion murder case? And why is Hugo, who withdrew from the task force, also here?" But Vincent replied that he believed the three recent cases were closely related because all the victims had died from the same type of weapon. Seeing this, Linda hurriedly explained, "The perpetrator is very likely a professional assassin from Mexico. That's why they need Hugo's help with the investigation." Gerald listened and reluctantly agreed, but demanded that they report the situation twice a day. Just as everyone was about to leave, Mika suddenly stepped forward to announce that the drug test results were in. The pile of white pills scattered at the car explosion scene were actually Alzheimer's medication. This meant the perpetrator was likely an elderly person suffering from memory loss, possibly even losing control of their body and mind. Thinking of this, Vincent approached Ellis's wife to ask if her husband had exhibited any unusual behavior recently. For example, contact with strangers or a sudden change in mood. But Ellis's wife shook her head, insisting that her husband had behaved the same way for 20 years, with no unusual actions and no acquaintance with the victim in the mansion murder case. The lead was cut off once again. Vincent left his contact information, instructing Ellis's wife to report anything she remembered immediately. At the same time, after learning that Ellis had been killed, Randy, the mastermind behind the dark industry, finally appeared. He anxiously sought out his mother, the corporation's chairwoman, begging her to handle the aftermath for him. Devana couldn't let her son be threatened. She demanded that Randy attend tomorrow night's party and then leave on the company's private jet, staying away for a while. She had no idea her son was already caught in the trap. The scythe of death was hovering over Randy's head. Early the next morning, Vincent was busy with the case when he suddenly received an anonymous phone call. The caller claimed to be the owner of the exploded car, who was actually Alex N.C. Dan. He ignored Vincent's questions and bluntly admitted to killing Ellis, causing the murder at the villa and the car explosion not long before, but he repeatedly insisted that Beatrice's death had nothing to do with him. Vincent hurriedly signaled Linda to monitor the phone signal, then stepped to the window and asked the person on the other end of the line, what was the purpose of doing all this? Unexpectedly, Alex told him that the police were too slow. If he didn't take action, those people would never receive appropriate punishment. Next, Alex spoke sincerely. If he couldn't make the mastermind pay, he hoped Vincent could do it for him. Then he hung up decisively. Vincent's expression became complicated. And just then, Linda finally finished tracking the signal. The location showed Alex was in the park directly below the police station. Without a word, the two immediately sprang into action. However, when they ran to the park, they only found an empty bench. Alex had vanished, but the recent phone call had given Vincent a new lead. They repeatedly cross-checked based on these scattered pieces of information. The results revealed that all these people were connected to Randy. Borden was one of his lawyers, and the victim in the mansion murder case was also a contractor who had worked with Randy. Now Vincent could confirm that the mastermind Alex had mentioned on the phone was Randy, the head of the criminal organization that the US and Mexico had been investigating for a year. But currently, they have no evidence. How can they bring Randy to justice? What is certain is that Alex's next target is definitely Randy. So that night, Vincent and his team approached Randy's yacht party, trying to catch Alex in the act. However, no matter how strict and thorough the police arrangements were, Alex still quietly boarded the yacht without anyone noticing. At this moment, Randy also went out on deck and picked a young girl from the crowd, intending to take her to the pleasure room. Watching from afar, Vincent got out of the car. He spotted a broken bottle of medicine on the ground. He immediately realized Alex had boarded the yacht and urgently called Linda and Hugo to take action. In another development, the girl had followed Randy into the room. Unexpectedly, as soon as she opened the bathroom door, she was gagged by Alex, who was hiding behind the door. The girl trembled in fear, not daring to resist at all. Immediately after, Alex stepped out of the bathroom and used a pillow to smother Randy, who was completely caught off guard, sending him straight to hell. When Vincent and his two teammates rushed into the room, they only saw Randy's cold body, while Alex had disappeared without a trace. Vincent was unwilling to let his target escape like that. He rushed to the window and looked outside. Sure enough, he saw Alex quickly fleeing. He immediately gave chase. When he chased to a boat dock, the headlights of a car suddenly flashed on, successfully attracting Vincent's attention. He raised his gun cautiously and approached the car, but unexpectedly, a cold barrel was pointed at his temple. It turned out to be Alex's trap. Vincent realized the situation and dropped his gun. It seemed Alex had no intention of killing him, only demanding that the police not interfere with his actions anymore. Although he wasn't a good person, he wouldn't allow anyone to harm innocent people. Realizing Alex's intentions, Vincent signaled to Hugo, who was chasing after him, to lower his gun and prepare for the enemy to leave. Unexpectedly, just as Alex started the car, Hugo suddenly fired from behind. The bullet hit Alex in the shoulder. To avoid being pursued by the police, he gritted his teeth, abandoned the original car, and stole a car parked on the side of the road. After that, he endured the pain and drove back to the safe base. But as soon as he stopped in front of the door, Alex couldn't take it anymore and passed out in the car. After an unknown amount of time, a patrolling police officer discovered Alex unconscious. He banged on the car window to wake him up. Seeing the bloodstain on the driver's seat, he immediately turned pale with shock. But just as he was about to draw his gun to call for backup, Alex decisively pulled the trigger. After confirming the officer was dead, he got out of the car and staggered into the safe base. Despite the wound in his stomach still bleeding profusely, Alex struggled to find a bottle of vodka. The burning liquid scorched his throat, bringing his chaotic consciousness back to some clarity. Immediately afterward, he poured the rest of the alcohol onto the wound. The intense pain instantly drenched his forehead in cold sweat. By the time he had painstakingly treated the wound, Alex's strength was nearly depleted. However, he still mustered his last ounce of strength to laboriously remove the gun from his hand. He then collapsed onto the table and fell unconscious once more. Unexpectedly, Hugo arrived at the safe house. Alex was awakened by the sound of the door opening. He immediately tensed and stood up. He saw someone upstairs through a crack in the floor. Taking advantage of the police searching the room, Alex quickly assembled his pistol at top speed. Fortunately, Hugo did not discover the basement where he was hiding. After searching without success, he turned and left. However, after piecing together the series of crimes, they can't believe that Alex was definitely still hiding in the safe house. Taking advantage of the cover of night, Viant led a team of police to surround the safe house. But when they stormed into the basement to search, they found it completely empty. At this moment, Alex had arrived at Devana's commercial building. Although the wound in his stomach was still unbearably painful, he had no time to wait. He just wanted to kill Devana as quickly as possible to end all this in. But he didn't know that the police had already deduced his intentions from the clues. So Mika personally led his men to strictly guard Devana's floor. Unexpectedly, Alex still found a loophole. Taking advantage of the night, he successfully evaded the patrolling police and slipped into the heavily guarded building. He then subdued a patrolling officer, held a gun to his back, and forced him to lead the way to the floor with the connection. The police guarding the elevator door immediately raised their guns in alert. But to ensure the safety of their colleagues, they could only slowly lower their guns under Alex's threat, not daring to act recklessly. Unexpectedly, at that moment, a police officer hiding in a blind spot suddenly fired decisively. This gunshot was like a signal, and both sides immediately fell into a chaotic battle. Thanks to his years of combat experience, Alex dodged bullets while counterattacking, eventually successfully subduing the police officers, then taking advantage of the sound of the chandelier falling. Alex quickly escaped the scene. He slipped through the darkness and ran up to the roof of the building. By the time the police at the scene reacted and gave chase, Alex had already slid down the cable, ready to land directly on Devana's balcony. Seeing the assassin falling from the sky, Mika, who was responsible for protecting Devana, also panicked a little. Just as he was about to speak up to persuade him, Alex walked up to him, said nothing, and knocked him unconscious. Next, he pointed the black muzzle of his gun at Davana. But just as Alex was about to pull the trigger, he discovered that the gun wouldn't fire. Just as he was wondering why, Mika woke up, stood up, and knocked him unconscious with a powerful blow. In another development, Vincent and his teammates were searching the safe house when they discovered the secret to disabling Alex's gun. It turned out that before the operation, Alex's Alzheimer's had suddenly relapsed. When assembling the pistol, he had forgotten to install the firing pin. When Alex woke up again, he found himself locked in a police interrogation room. Mika furiously stormed in, gritted his teeth, slapped him, and declared he would send him to the harshest prison on the sea to take the blame for his dead colleague. Alex did not defend himself, but insisted that he had only spoken to Vincent. This statement completely enraged Mika. He raised his fist to hit Alex again, questioning what right Alex had to make demands of him, and was about to continue his assault. Fortunately, the FBI agent nearby intervened in time. Mika's reason finally returned. At the same time, Vincent received a secret package. Inside were 2 USB drives recording Randy's crimes. After viewing the contents, Vincent immediately sought out his superior, hoping the other party would agree to let him negotiate with the Mexican police to bring Alex back under the jurisdiction of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. After some consideration, Joe agreed to the proposal. He also wanted to extract more clues about the outcome from Alex. Vincent immediately set off for the Mexican police station. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered the police station gate, he saw Alex being carried onto an ambulance, barely breathing. His suppressed anger immediately erupted. Vincent immediately rushed over to question Mika about why he had taken it upon himself to torture the suspect. The result was that the other party became even more irritated, directly grabbing Vincent by the collar and wrestling with him. It wasn't until his teammates pulled them apart that the situation between the two calmed down. After that, Vincent and his teammates went to the hospital to see Alex lying in his hospital bed. The suspect's condition was clearly not good, but he tried to explain the whole story to them. However, even knowing she was the mastermind, the federal investigation could not arrest her because they had no evidence. Just as Vincent was feeling stuck, Alex said he had evidence of her crime. He had recorded the phone call and saved it on a USB drive. But as his illness worsened, he couldn't remember where he had stored the USB drive and could only close his eyes helplessly. Vincent first handed Alex's statement and the USB drive recording Randy's crime to the chief of the Mexican police department. The other party promised that as soon as they found the recording of that phone call, he would order KT's arrest and open an investigation. With that promise, Vincent tirelessly returned to the hospital room, asking Alex to try to remember the location of the USB. But the important information written on his arm had been completely erased. Alex's mind was now completely blank and he could not provide any useful information. In another forum, surviving death is still scary. Alex's existence makes her unable to eat or sleep well. To avoid future troubles, she spends money to buy a doctor in the hospital. This user will find Alex's head in the past. However, many years of assassin career have trained Alex's intuition to be sensitive to danger. As soon as the doctor holding the poison approached the hospital bed, Alex opened his eyes, then grabbed the doctor's collar. Not long after, a large police special forces covered the hospital. Vincent and his teammates could also run over. Through the car surveillance system, everyone saw Alex gently restraining the doctor. Vincent saw this and immediately went to the main gate of the hospital. The command also confirmed through surveillance that Alex had walked out of the hospital gate because both of them used white towels to cover half of their bodies. The warning could only rely on the clothes to judge the identity, but it was a million times unexpected that the person who was shot with the hand seal was the real doctor. It turned out that Alex had promptly exchanged clothes with the other party before leaving the door. Before he could react, Alex had already gotten into Vincent's car and pretended to leave. However, the words were not yet final. A bullet had accurately hit the car. Watching the special police force gradually approaching, Alex realized that he could hardly escape death tonight. Fortunately, he remembered the location of the USB. So after revealing the clue to Vincent, he resolutely put down the gun and got out of the car. In the end, he was shot dead by the Mexican police. Vincent heard the heavy gunshot and could not contain his pain, but he still remembered what Alex had heard. So the next day, Vincent returned to that safe base. Sure enough, he found the USB in the light box outside the house. The evidence inside was enough to prove that the perpetrator was illegal. However, when Vincent brought the USB to meet the police chief, the Mexican police, the other side completely denied the previous commitment not to issue an arrest warrant. Only then was Vincent shocked to have received an early warning of information that was mutually beneficial to the conclusion, and the law was completely ineffective against her. Tonight, Davana sat on the rooftop of the luxury villa congratulating herself on escaping danger. The next moment, a sharp knife had cut through her throat, the glass of wine in her hand fell to the ground. Davana's eyes widened in surprise, unable to believe that she had escaped the punishment of the law. but in the end she died in the safe zone she had built herself. At the same time, Vincent, who was drinking to relieve his sorrow in the bar, also saw the news. He opened his eyes wide and looked at Linda on the side, and as a result, he discovered that the other party was calling again, in a flash of lightning. He was shocked to realize that Linda had asked him out tonight to create an alibi for both of them. And the real killer who had taken action was not them, but the suspended police officer Hugo. He could not tolerate a real criminal who was so easily outside the law. So he used Alex's method, using the simplest and most brutal way to convict the crime. Here the movie ends. What do you think about it? Leave your positive comments below. Thank you for watching.